Morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or whatever time of day it is for you. Um, one thing that's been kind of landing on me a bit as I've been reading. I've been reading a lot in Isaiah, Ezekiel, James, and Jeremiah. And one thing that I was noticing, particularly about like some of the Old Testament prophets, so those would be like, it's the Jewish Bible is the Old Testament, and it's part of the Christian Bible, right? So there's the prophets; they're the messengers of God. So it's like, and a lot of the time, particularly in the Old Testament, if you've read some of that, it's a lot of warnings. God's like warning his people about different things, about their behavior in particular. I mean, it's kind of the same story, I suppose. It's not really much different these days. We haven't really seemed to have figured it out. And yeah, it's just it was standing out to me because I was just starting to feel. Well, it reminds me, if you're a parent, you'll be able to relate with this, okay? Because I have a young son, and sometimes parenting is very difficult. You love your kid to death, like you unconditionally, like no matter what they're doing, you still love them. But sometimes you just get really angry at them, right? Because they're not listening, they're not behaving the way you want them to, right? And as I was reading kind of a lot of these prophets who are warning, God's people, warning Israel, warning the Jewish people, and it applies not to just the Jewish people. It's also pretty much anybody who believes in God, Jesus. Well, I guess the Jewish people wouldn't have been that time. Jesus hadn't come to earth yet, but anyways, we are all God's children. Okay, my point is we're all God's children, and the anger, so that sometimes comes out in the Old Testament, because I think that's a criticism for a lot of people, is like, how can I follow a God who's so like wrathful and mean, and but it's not him, that's not it. Sure, if you're reading the Old Testament, there is a lot of God's anger in there, but it's more just like a frustrated parent kind of anger. I guess I felt like as I was reading it, I was just like, God, I am sorry that you've had to put up with us. Like, I mean, maybe because I was feeling particularly, had some frustrating moments with my own son, and then I was reading that, and just like, wow, like that's it right there. Like, I mean, obviously the anger with my son is a much smaller scale than like what God has had to put up with all of from the beginning. Like, he's been having to deal with the rebellion of his kids, like, and I mean, he gives free will because he loves us and he wants us to choose him, like it wouldn't be love if it was forced. If he could have just made us all, kind of robots and kind of thing. But he didn't want that. He wanted to love us. He wanted to give us that choice, and it really pains him when we don't choose him back. And I guess I just felt like I really wanted to point that out, because it's so easy for us to just kind of separate, I guess, like the human part of God or Jesus in particular. Jesus had to live through all the stuff we did. He came down and grew up. He's been present since the beginning of time. He's God, and the Bible talks about Jesus being with God in the beginning, like the Word. Jesus is the Word. Okay, that's when the Bible talks about the Word, that's Jesus. It's not just the Bible. It's that Jesus is the Word. And yeah, he's been around, since the beginning with God, and then he chose to come down and be born as a person. So he was very much human. He was, he was divine, but he was very much human, and he had to live through all the same stuff we did, if not worse. Just read what, read through the Gospels, and you can read through some of what Jesus went through. And that's just that was just when he started his ministry, which he was around 30 when that started, right? So, he would have had 30 years of living. And I can just think about it, I'm in my 30s now, and the amount of stuff I've gone through and learned, and he went through the wilderness too. He dealt with rejection and all of that stuff from his family. He experienced it all. It's so easy to kind of detach that and just focus on his divinity. But and he did that. He chose that. He chose to come that because he loves us and he wants to help us. He wants to help guide us so that we can do the same, that we can heal from all of those things, and that we can move forward, and that we can live our best lives. That's why he did it. That's why God, God's not an angry God. He gets angry. He gets frustrated like we do on a much more massive scale than we do, right? But he understands that, and because he is a loving parent, that's the anger, the wrath you can see in the Old Testament. It's because his children on a massive scale and are doing despicable things, and he sees it all, and he loves us enough to let us have our tantrums, but he does need to deal with it, right? And sometimes people just don't listen, don't change, can't hear. And that's exactly why Jesus came down, to try and help us see and give us a model, of how we can do that. And yeah, anyways, I guess I just wanted to say God loves you enough, so much, you know, um, that He's going to do whatever He can. He has been doing all this stuff to try and bring you back to Him. And He's not going to force you. Um, he's just going to do His best to love you regardless of what you do, you know. And yeah, God loves you.